This is Mr. Alexander, and I am here today to talk about solving quadratic equations by factoring. This is simply solving for x, getting the x by itself or the variable of interest, and I'm going to just solve some of these off of the homework we assigned. So I want to start with this problem right here. K plus 1 times k minus 5 equals 0. K plus 1 times k minus 5 equals 0. So this is already factored. This is a quadratic that's already factored. We could FOIL this thing out. And if we did that, we'd get k squared minus 4k minus 5 equals 0. Not all of these are always going to be factored out for you, but in this case it is. And because it is, it makes our lives pretty simple. I know it's quadratic because the biggest term is a square, is a 2. When it's in this form, k times k is k squared. So that's how I know it's quadratic. And when it's factored like this, it's a pretty simple process. You just take that k plus 1 and set it equal to 0, and then you do the same thing for k minus 5 equals 0. And so it's a simple algebra. We're just going to get the k by itself. Minus 1 plus 5 k equals 1, comma, or sorry, negative 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, and 0 plus 5 is positive 5. So that is the solution to the quadratic. This thing equals 0. Now that's how you know you're going to solve it. If it says equals y, you're probably going to graph it or do something else. But if it says equals 0, that means find the solution. Solve for x. So let's take a look at some of this other stuff here. Not all of these are solved for you. So these guys, they're all already factored. So I want to try something where it's not already factored. So I'm thinking maybe number 5 here. X squared minus 11x plus 19 equals negative 5. So I'm just going to rewrite that. X squared minus 11x plus 19 equals negative 5. Now I said that you would know that you were supposed to solve it if it said equals 0. This guy doesn't say equals 0, so we need to get it there. You need to add 5 to both sides first. Plus 5, plus 5. That's going to leave me with x squared minus 11x plus 24 equals 0. Since I've got an equals 0 over here, now this is something that I can factor. Now, lots of people like to factor lots of different ways. I'm going to share with you the way that I like to think about it. Maybe your teacher does it differently, or maybe you do it differently, and that's okay. But you usually want to start with a times c. A is the number in front of the x squared. C is the number right before the equal sign. So that's going to be 1 times 24, which is just 24. So we want to think of all the factors of 24. So for instance, 1 and 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Those are all the ways you can multiply to get a 24. But see how this middle term is a negative? What we're looking for are two numbers that multiply to 24, but also add to this b term, to this negative 11. Since that's a negative, I know that all of these are negatives. Because negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. Negative 3 times negative 8 is positive 24. So they're all negative. And like I said, I'm looking for the combination that not only multiplies to positive 24, but adds to negative 11. So if you can imagine a little plus sign in here, So negative 1 minus 24 is negative 25. Negative 2 minus 12 is negative 14. Negative 3 minus 8 is negative 11. Negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. And I said I'm looking for the one that adds to the b term. That's this one. And if you get to this point and the a is 1, then what you can do is you can say, okay, it's negative 3 and negative 8. These are the two that I'm interested in. So just rewrite that as x minus 3 times x minus 8 equals 0. So if you were to FOIL this out, you would get this answer. But I'm not done yet. I haven't solved it. I need to set each of these equal to 0. So x minus 3 equals 0 and x minus 8 equals 0. When you add 3, you add 8, and you get x equals positive 3 and positive 8. Those are the two solutions on that one. Some of them are easier than others. Some of them you have to think a little bit. I'm thinking about, for instance, number 9 here. See how the a isn't a 1? It's a 6. And sometimes that happens and we have to do something fancy. So I want to talk about number 9 there. And if it's all right with you, I'm just going to change all these n's to x's. So I'm going to write that as 6x squared minus 18x minus 18 equals 6. I got to get an equals 0 first and foremost, so I'm going to subtract 6. It's going to leave me with 6x squared minus 18x minus 24 equals 0. Now you might be inclined to go ahead and do a times c right now. Do that 6 times that negative 24. But that's kind of ugly. That's going to give me some numbers that aren't very pretty. But what I'm noticing is that all of these, the 6, this negative 18, this negative 24, these are all multiples of 6. I could go ahead and factor out that 6 and rewrite this as 6 times x squared minus, well, okay, 18 minus 6, that's 3x. 24 minus 6 is minus 4 equals 0. So you see how I kind of took that ugly problem and made it a little bit prettier. Because now I'm not talking about factoring this thing with all these large numbers. I'm talking about factoring this x squared minus 3x minus 4. And what we can do is just take this part where the a is 1 and the c is negative 4. So a times c is 1 times negative 4, which is negative 4. Let's think about all the ways we can make a negative 4. Well, that's 1 times negative 4, or negative 1 times positive 4, or negative 2 times 2. Those are the only ways to make a negative 4. I want the one that adds to negative 3. So if I added all these up, that'd be negative 3, positive 3, 0. This is negative 3, so I want these two. So I can go ahead and rewrite this as 6 times x plus 1 times x minus 4 equals 0. Now I want to write that this way so that I can solve for x, so I can get those x's by themselves. And you might be asking, what do I do with that 6 in the front there? What's going to happen with that 6? Well, the answer is nothing, really. Because you can divide both sides by 6 and make it go away, because this side divided by 6 crosses it out, and then 0 divided by 6 is 0. So we're really only talking about the two parts with x's in there. I'm not really concerned about that 6. So all I need to do is x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0. And I need to solve each of those for x. So minus 1 plus 4 plus 4, x equals -1, comma, 4. And the 6 had no bearing on the answer. So that's a few of those. We had 3 pages of homework here. That was some stuff on the first page. I've got some time. I think maybe I'll do a couple on the second page here. The first one's catching my eye is this. It's number 19. That one looks interesting. That's a little bit different than the ones we've done so far. What's going on there with that number 19? 7x squared plus 2x equals 0. I want to do that one. That looks interesting. So I'm just going to rewrite the problem. 19, 7x squared plus 2x equals 0. See, this one's a binomial because it has 2 terms. It's not a trinomial like the ones we've been doing previous. So we have to factor this a little bit differently. And when there's 2 terms, the first thing you ought to ask yourself is, well, do they share anything in common? And if they do, you should factor it out. Well, 7's a prime, 2's a prime, so there's nothing in common there. But they both have x's. This is an x squared, that's an x. So I can factor out an x. And the stuff that's in the parentheses is the stuff that we didn't factor out. So 7x squared, there were 2 x's here, I took 1 away. That means that there's 7x left right there. Plus, well, we had a 2x, but I took the x away. So that leaves me with a 2. Now this thing's fully factored. I can go ahead and take these 2 parts and set them equal to 0. So I can say, well, x equals 0. That's solved. And 7x plus 2 equals 0. So you subtract 2. 7x equals -2. Divide by 7. X equals -2 over 7. So the 2 answers are x equals 0, comma, -2 sevenths. So that one wasn't too bad. Just had to think about it a little bit differently. And that's the general gist of it. That's how you do some factoring. There's lots of different ways to do factoring, so maybe ask your teacher. They might have a different way that they want you to think about it, or maybe they have a better way to think about it. So talk to your teacher, and I hope this was useful. Thank you for watching.